Hi, my name's Angela, and I'm a freelance breaking news videographer, known in the industry as a stringer videographer, and sometimes the public knows us as night crawlers, like in the movie Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. My beat is Oakland, California, and I have been working here for 4 years, and I cover a variety of different types of breaking news stories. And lately, I've been sharing how I cover those stories. Today, I'm going to talk about covering structure fires, probably one of the most chaotic scenes I cover on the regular. So, I want to start with hearing the call. Monitoring the scanner for a structure fire is pretty straightforward. The fire department uses very loud tones to get the firemen's attention before they start announcing what the call is. And even before they announce what the call is, they call out what trucks they want to respond to that call. So in a structure fire situation, you're going to hear a lot of trucks called. Engines, ladder trucks, battalion this, truck that. If it's just a couple of trucks, maybe two or three, it's probably not a very big fire or hasn't been reported as a very big fire. But if they're calling out more than that in the Bay Area, to me, that means my ears go up and I start paying very close attention. And in fact, I might go ahead and start staging my gear. So I don't just run out the door. While I'm staging my gear, I'm also going to listen to the address, and I need to check and see what my response time or drive time is going to be to that address. In my situation, because of what is important, the type of footage that you need to get when you're covering a structure fire, I have a time limit typically that I set for myself, or a response time limit. And that's a drive time of about 10 minutes. It's going to take me about 5 minutes to get out the door, drive time 5 minutes. And when you're responding to a structure fire situation, you have to account for very crowded residential streets, possibly very limited parking, so 5 minutes for parking. So I'm looking at 20 minutes. If it's already upgraded to a second alarm when that originating call goes out, that definitely tells me that that's a big fire. But I don't actually leave until I hear the first units arrive on the scene and what they report seeing. And that would be things like structure fully involved, visible flames, or working structure fire. Once I hear those confirmations, I am out the door. 2, let's talk about gear and preparation for a structure fire. You don't always take the same gear to every type of call. And a structure fire is one of those calls. The fire gear is it's not even actually fire gear. It's just the gear that I wear to a structure fire is different than what I would grab going to a crime scene. I don't necessarily need a tripod. Fires are very chaotic. There's hoses everywhere. There's runoff. There's debris. There's people running. They can change where they need to move those hoses at any minute. And a tripod is pretty bulky and in the way. I do have one just in case because at some point I'm probably going to look for interviews or at least a statement from the commander on scene. So I do have a tripod that I carry with me on my backpack, but this is not something that I have found essential to structure fires. The other most important, one of the other most important pieces of equipment that I think I use at a structure fire is without question my tactical boots. You get to a structure fire and there is so much water being poured on a fire that there's just water everywhere, in every street, in every gutter. And in that water is fire debris and anything else that was on the street when the water started running. I mean, I have stepped in water that is ankle deep and running. My tactical boots are very much a go-to in a structure fire situation, so I always make sure that I'm wearing those on the way out. And the last thing that I try to make sure that I grab, but sometimes it's just not where I need it to be because you have to respond very quickly to structure fires. It's not like any other situation, and we'll get to that because it's about the type of footage that you need to get of a structure fire in order to make this something that you can license to stations. But the other piece is I try to grab my yellow vest. It's best if you're always showing up on scene and you are trying to be seen by authorities versus them assuming that you're trying not to be seen by them. So I try to grab my yellow vest, and that's been very helpful for me in fire situations. The last thing I would say is just whatever you're wearing, you're going to don't be surprised if you smell like smoke. Just 1 minute standing in smoke from a structure fire, and you are going to stink from head to toe, everything. So consider what you're wearing, designating whatever that outfit is for working a structure fire. I mentioned earlier when I talked about response time to include parking time. So arriving on scene is a chaotic situation, and there's a few things that you really want to be super, super aware of. First of all, you're not going to be able to park very close to any sort of structure fire, especially a residential structure fire in most metropolitan areas, because those streets are going to be crowded already with the residents' cars, and then they're going to be crowded with responding agency cars. So you should expect to have to park a distance out and walk into the fire wherever that is. And in that case, I would like to say, remember to drop a pin. I have gone and rushed to fires and jumped out of my car, grabbing my camera and just trying to get the shot. And it's a big, big scene, and I'll work as much around a scene as I can. So, and a fire is a wide scene, and I have forgotten where I parked my car. So that can be a problem. You want to be aware of that. Drop a pin. The other thing is you don't want to get so close that you end up getting actually parked in if additional responders show up to the scene, which has also happened to me and put me at a fire scene for about an hour and a half longer than I actually needed to be there, just sort of sitting in my car. Well, I didn't sit in my car. I did do a TikTok live because I couldn't get out. Why not share my experience? Be aware of that being something that can happen. And the other really, really big deal to remember when you're responding to a fire is because those scenes are so big, they lay those hoses out. Their water sources might be a block and a half away from the fire, and there's a lot of hoses running. Don't run over a single one ever, no matter what. It doesn't matter if there's nobody there to tell you not to do it. Don't drive over fire hoses ever. That will definitely give you a bad reputation with the fire department. 4, press, access, and professionalism. A fire scene is different from a crime scene. It's not necessarily a scene that you are restricted from. Don't be surprised if you show up and there might be police officers on the perimeter that are directing traffic away from the scene. And you might have to say, hey, no, I'm press, and explain to them. Or if you have any sort of press identification, you want to be sure that you're wearing that so that you don't get hassled a lot by the police. Now, if they have actually put up crime tape, then there's going to be more of a problem because they have defined a public safety issue or a crime, and you might have a harder time getting past that, especially if there's evacuation orders in place. You're probably not going to get past that line. But that being said, if that crime scene tape is not up and it's not a hard barrier, you can oftentimes talk your way in as a member of the press. And if you can get at least a battalion commander's attention or a chief's attention and ask them to say to the law enforcement that, yes, you can come in, then that's very helpful. And that's oftentimes what I have to resort to. And I shout things like, look, I've done this before. I assure you I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to be a problem. I'm not going to be in the way. I'll stay safe. I'm not going to be anybody that you need to pay attention to. So here's my rules when it comes to working a fire scene. You want to become one with the biggest, most solid object that you're closest to so that you are for sure never in anybody's way. So if there's a building that you can put your back against that, is safe, do that. If there's a truck, if there's a car, find an immovable object and become one with the immovable object to film from. Don't ever become part of the problem or part of the scene. And you want to be sure that you're looking up and you're listening to what the firemen are saying to each other. Power lines fall, walls can get blown over with water hoses. Debris can get blown off of rooftops and fall down. You just really need to be very, very super aware if you're going to be anywhere near a large structure fire. And surprisingly, I'm not even talking like right next to. I'm talking like 20, 30 feet, and you can still get hit with debris and power lines and things like that. And also power lines, typically one of the first things they do is have PG&E come and turn off the power to the grid that they're working with. But again, you just have to be very aware of all of those things. Now, let's talk about shot priorities. What are you doing at that structure fire? What kind of footage do you need to get? Well, I'm going to give them to you in order. You want flames. Flames are absolutely the money shot in any structure fire. If you don't have flames, you better have something else that's going to make up for it that's big on this list. But flames, that's the first place to start. Next, black smoke. White smoke is steam. That means that the fire is on its way out or at least under control. Black smoke, that means the fire is still vigorously burning. Lines of fire trucks. If there is a huge response of fire trucks, like a 2 or 3 alarm fire, and they have to line up on a residential street and they have all of those lights going, man, get right on that line and get that shot. That is a really good shot that represents like the amount of response of fire. You want to get firemen on ladders. You want to get firemen coming out of buildings. You want to get firemen using axes. All of those things are great shots and very, very impactful. In addition to that, you want to get people being evacuated, evacuees that are waiting across the street, people that are watching the fire, people from the neighborhood that have lined up to watch the response. Always make sure you turn around when you're filming a large event, because other people's faces really reflect and help tell the story. And then, of course, the obligatory hose shot with water spewing out of it that we have all seen on the evening news. That is definitely part of shooting a fire. Here's the other thing about a fire. So you're going to be really glad that most fires don't last that long, at least not in metropolitan areas, not in Oakland, because you have to stick around for the interviews. And that's the really great thing about fire departments is you can get that interview on the spot. They don't have to go through roadblocks like police departments do and get permission or wait for a PIO. Most battalion chiefs and chiefs are trained on dealing with the media and how to give a statement to the media. So you want to stick around, and that's when you might use that tripod, that's, that lightweight tripod if you're carrying one. Otherwise, be prepared to hold your camera very still for as long as 3 or 4 minutes, which can be difficult for some photographers. Stick around for that. That's always a plus in marketing your footage too, because that will help the stations just instantly and visually verify information that they need to tell the story. They don't have to send emails or wait for representatives from the fire department to get back to them, things like that. So an interview is always a plus. If you can get an interview with an evacuee or somebody who saw the fire start or saw the fire response, that's also helpful. Timing and duration. As I mentioned before, most structure fires, you have maybe 20 to 40 minutes to get that lineup of shots for your package. And that's what we call it, as a package. So if you can't do that in that 20 to 40 minute window and make sure that the fire is large enough, then I would not even bother wasting the resources of chasing that fire to begin with. I will say that wildfires are a whole different animal, and that's going to be a whole different video. If that's something you're really into, that'll come at a later time. I have not shot a lot of wildfires, but I do have a friend who specializes in that, and I am going to be working with them on getting either that script right or getting more experience doing it, or maybe having them as a guest. We'll see. But that's a different type of fire. Also, commercial fires are different from residential structure fires, but that's a more in-depth stringer class that I'll probably do somewhere down the line on my Patreon. for people who are seriously considering this sort of thing as a profession or a side gig. Let's talk about editing and delivery. Editing order is sort of critical for a structure fire. Putting together all of your clips, and you're going to send that out to the station, or you're going to send a link to that out to the station, and the order that you put those clips in for a structure fire is not important, but is very helpful for the stations if you do give and order something similar to this, which is something similar to the shot lineup that you're looking for, which is the flames at the front. So you want to put your flames at the front of the editing, black smoke, fire trucks, evacuees, ambulances, and then finish with the interviews and any official statements. So why flames first? Because you are giving a fully edited together package, although you have multiple shots. Some stations are just going to run that package as they receive it. It's helpful if they can run that package as they receive it and they don't have to spend time editing it. But they might still do that. Flames up front is a good practice, and that's literally just your strongest image in a structure fire anyway. So 9, key safety and professional reminders. Never, ever get in the way of the firemen. Don't interfere with operations. Don't walk up and try to interrupt things. Just stay out of the way. Become one with an immovable object. Always be visible and identifiable. Don't be sneaky, and don't do anything stupid. Don't draw the attention away from the emergency in any way, shape, or form. Always plan your exit routes, not only for your car, but when you are walking around that structure fire, if the situation changes in any way, shape, or form, and a power line does drop, or a hose breaks, or a wall falls, or anything like that, always be aware of how you can escape from where you are, because you're very privileged as a member of the media to be able to videotape and work a fire much closer. So be aware of that. Don't waste your time on calls you haven't heard the confirmation of flames in yet. Always wait for that when you're covering a structure fire. You would be surprised how many false alarms fire departments respond to. So that's how I work a structure fire as a stringer videographer. If you thought this video was interesting, or you think it's helpful to anything that you do, it would be great if you could like, subscribe, and if you want to leave a comment, I would love to know what your experience has been shooting structure fires, or if you have any questions of maybe something that I didn't cover in this video. And remember, my Patreon is coming soon, and that's where I'm going to share the longer, deeper, more in-depth sort of training, plus some really great behind-the-scenes stringer stories that I probably couldn't tell on YouTube. And, just other stuff that's stringer related. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Don't forget to like, hit that subscribe button, and follow along for more. And as always, I'll catch you on the beat.